Hello viewers, welcome to Big Man Business YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the top imports and export of the Philippines. Keep watching, we got you covered. The Philippines is a densely populated island in Southeast Asia with a population of 108.9 million people. The Republic of the Philippines is the official name of the country. In 2020, the Philippines exported $63.9 billion in commodities around the world. This figure represents a 13.4% gain from 2016 to 2020, but a minus 9.2% decrease from 2020 to 2021. Using a continental perspective, 70.1% of the Philippines' exports were supplied to other Asian countries, while 16.7% were sold to North American importers. Another 11.6% of the Philippines' exports went to Europe. Oceania, led by Australia with 0.7%, Latin America, excluding Mexico but including the Caribbean with 0.6%, and Africa received smaller percentages with 0.2%. If you're new to the Big Man Business YouTube channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to receive updates on new business expert videos. For more international business news and updates, please visit www.bigmanbusiness.com. Philippines top trading partners. The top trading partners of the Philippines are listed here, along with the countries that imported the most Filipino shipments by dollar value in 2021. The percentage of total Filipino exports for each import country is also indicated. $9.9 billion in Japan accounts for 15.5% of total Filipino exports. $9.7 billion in the United States accounts for 15.2%. $9.6 billion in China accounts for 15.1%. $9.1 billion in Hong Kong accounts for 14.2%. $3.8 billion in Singapore accounts for 5.9%. Thailand is worth $2.9 billion, which is 4.5%. $2.5 billion in South Korea is 4%. $2.4 billion in Germany accounts for 3.7%. Taiwan with $2.1 billion accounts for 3.2%. $1.9 billion in the Netherlands account for 3%. $1.8 billion in Malaysia accounts for 2.7%. $1.3 billion in Vietnam accounts for 2%. $551.3 million in India accounts for 0.9%. $545.6 million in Mexico accounts for 0.9%. 472.7 million francs from France accounts for 0.7%. India increased by 3.3%, and Vietnam went up by 3.3%, are the only top trading partners to have growth from 2019 to 2020. France led the way in terms of import purchases from the Philippines, with a minus 40.8% drop year over year. Second position went to South Korea as they went down by minus 21%, Mexico went down by minus 18.7%, the Netherlands was down by minus 15.8%, and the United States also went down by minus 15.8%. Philippines top imports. In 2020, the Republic of the Philippines imported goods worth $112.9 billion from throughout the world. This represents a 60.9% increase from 2016, but a minus 1.9% decrease from 2019 to 2020. The Philippine peso has fallen by minus 4.5% against the US dollar since 2016 but has appreciated by 4.2% from 2019 to 2020, according to the average exchange rate for 2020. In comparison to 2019, a stronger local currency in the Philippines makes Filipino imports paid in stronger US dollars considerably less expensive when converted from the Philippine peso. From a continental viewpoint, fellow Asian countries accounted for nearly two-thirds or 63.8% of the Philippines' total imports by value in 2020. The Philippines received 7.1% of its imports from Europe, while 6.9% came from North America. Oceania got 1.3%, led by Australia and New Zealand, Latin America with 1%, excluding Mexico but encompassing the Caribbean, and Africa with 0.7%. With a population of 108.9 million people, the Philippines' total $112.9 billion in 2020 imports equates to nearly $1,050 in annual product demand from each individual in the Southeast Asian country. The following product groups show the import purchases with the largest monetary value in 2020. The percentage share of each product category in terms of overall imports into the Philippines is also shown. $27 billion in electrical machinery and equipment, which account for 23.9% of total imports. Mineral fuels, which include oil, are worth $13.6 billion, 12%. $12.5 billion in machinery, including computers, accounts for 11.1%. $8.5 billion in vehicles accounts for 7.5%. $3.9 billion in iron and steel stands at 3.5%. $3.7 billion in plastics and plastic goods accounts for 3.3%. Cereals are worth $2.9 billion, which accounts for 2.6%. $2.8 billion for aircraft and spacecraft, which accounts for 2.5%. $2.4 billion in optical, technical, and medical equipment accounts for 2.1%. $1.9 billion in iron and steel articles accounts for 1.7%. The Philippines' top 10 imports accounted for more than two-thirds of the total value of its product purchases from other nations, which is 70.1%. The fastest growing growth in value among the top 10 import categories was optical, technological, and medical gear, which increased by 17.5% from 2019 to 2020. Cereals, which grew by 7%, was the other top sector to grow, owing to greater overseas sales of rice and wheat in the Philippines. Iron and steel went down by -24.7%, and aviation and spacecraft were the biggest losers year-over-year, going down by -14.5%. Philippines' top exports. The Republic of Philippines, a Southeast Asian country in the Western Pacific Ocean, sent $63.9 billion worth of commodities throughout the world in 2020. This figure represents a 13.4% gain from 2016 to 2020, but a -9.2% decrease from 2019 to 2021. The Philippine peso has fallen by -4.5% against the US dollar since 2016, but has appreciated by 4.2% from 2019 to 2020, according to the average exchange rate for 2020. Exports paid for in weaker US dollars are substantially more expensive for overseas customers in 2020 due to a stronger local currency in the Philippines compared to 2019. Electronic circuits, computers, computer parts and accessories, insulated wire or cable, and printing gear were the Philippines' top exports by value in 2020. In total, the significant exports account for 46.7% of the Philippines' total export sales. Those items point to a somewhat narrow spectrum of exporting goods. The Philippines ranks among the top exporters of bananas, pineapples, and nickel in the world. Filipino exporters are also a prominent factor in the international sales of the Philippines' top export, electronic circuits. According to the most recent available data, importers in Japan accounted for 15.5% of the global total, the United States accounts for 15.2%. China 15.1%, Hong Kong claims 14.2%, Singapore accounts for 5.9%, Thailand accounts for 4.5%, South Korea accounts for 4%, Germany accounts for 3.7%, Taiwan 3.2%, Netherlands accounts for 3%, Malaysia 2.7%, and Vietnam purchased 89.1% of products exported from the Philippines. On a continental scale, 70.1% of the Philippines' exports were supplied to other Asian countries, while 16.7% were sold to North American buyers. Another 11.6% of the Philippines' exports went to Europe. Oceania, led by Australia with 0.7%, Latin America, excluding Mexico but including the Caribbean with 0.6%, and Africa received smaller percentages of 0.2%. With a population of 108.9 million people, The Philippines' total export revenue of $63.9 billion in 2020 equates to about $600 per citizen on the densely populated Southeast Asian island. The following export product groups are the most valuable in terms of dollars in Filipino global shipments in 2020. The percentage share of each export category in terms of total exports from the Philippines is also shown. $31.7 billion in electrical machinery and equipment accounting for 49.7% of total exports. $9.5 billion in machinery, including computers, accounts for 14.9%. $2.3 billion in fruits and nuts account for 3.6%. $1.8 billion in optical, technical, and medical equipment accounts for 2.8%. $1.7 billion in ores, slag, and ash account for 2.7%. $1.7 billion in copper account for 2.7%. $1.4 billion in gems and precious metals account for 2.1%. $939.1 million in vehicles account for 1.5%. $918.8 million in animal/vegetable fats, oils, and waxes account for 1.4%. $895.4 million in plastics and plastic goods account for 1.4%. Over 4/5 or 83% of the value of the Philippines' global shipments was accounted for by its top 10 exports. Ores, slag, and ash were the fastest growing export category among the top 10, up 40.6% from 2019 to 2020. Owing to increased overseas sales of nickel and iron ores and concentrates. Copper was the only other top export product to climb by 23.4%. Optical, technological, and medical apparatus was the highest decliner among the Philippines' top 10 export categories, with a -17.6% reduction year-over-year. Thanks for watching this video. We are open to suggestions. Kindly drop your comments in the comment box and don't forget to subscribe to the Big Man Business YouTube channel. See you in the next video.